Shedeur Sanders in a 2-minute drill. In a real deal drill, when it's time to move the ball, drops an absolute bomb to a receiver, but instantly knows to feel the pressure, steps up, and then, threads the needle here.
And clearly working on kind of keeping his feet moving at the top of his drop. Sometimes last year, and Joel, you know this, and it makes it hard, a quarterback drifts back. That's something that I think he has improved exponentially on from a year ago. He is not drifting in the pocket.
Every single day at Browns camp, something is happening on that practice field that the mainstream football media has collectively decided you do not need to see. And today, right here on Gridiron ground, we are going to change that. Shedeur Sanders is out there threading deep balls between defenders and his own teammates. He is stepping into pressure with a rusher in his face and still finding the middle of the field. He is changing plays at the line after reading the defense before the snap, something most rookie quarterbacks cannot do in their second or third year, let alone at this stage. He finished the only quarterback on the entire Browns roster to put a touchdown on the board that day. And the headline coming out of Browns camp: Jeudy dropped a pass. That is what they want the story to be. That is what is getting pushed, recycled, and replayed while the actual tape sits right there, available for anyone willing to press play and pay attention. We went through everything, drive by drive, rep by rep, and what we found is not just impressive, it is the kind of stuff that quietly rewrites the narrative on a quarterback if enough people see it. So before we go any further, drop a one-word answer in the comments right now. Accurate or overrated? One word. Let us see where Gridiron Ground stands on this. Now let us get into the tape. Before moving further, we're pushing for 1,000 subscribers here at Gridiron Ground. If you're enjoying our Browns and Shedeur Sanders coverage, hit that subscribe button and be part of the journey. Let's build this community together.
Nevertheless, so far, like I said, Shedeur efficient, effective, delivering some good balls. Here it is, finding it out for Isaiah Bond. This is one of those tight coverage throws, right? And I always feel like, I don't know if this is just happens to happen. Maybe this is what I'm noticing, but I typically notice like certain things Shedeur is like, again, not sure if it's intentional, but doing at a high pace. And this week happens to be these contested catches, getting these tight window throws in, being able to beat really good coverage, right? So really good stuff there from him with an easy little 7-on-7 situation. And then this one, Shedeur also been showing he got some wheels on him. They try to say he's not athletic.
It get dangerous.
But he's showing you what he can do with the olive greens. The olive green prime's on. Let's see. He goes here. There's a little DT stunt. He works to the outside, keeps his eyes downfield, and delivers a dot.
There's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot when evaluating young quarterbacks, and it sounds simple, but it is actually one of the hardest mechanical corrections any quarterback can make at any level. Pocket presence. Not just the concept of moving around and avoiding pressure, but the actual discipline of staying compact, keeping your base under you, and refusing to drift backward even when your instincts are screaming at you to create space. Shedeur Sanders had a drifting problem. That is not a rumor. That is not something cooked up by critics looking for a reason to doubt him. It was documented on tape from his college days, and it carried over into early evaluations coming out of the pre-draft process. When a quarterback drifts back instead of stepping up into the pocket, a few things happen almost immediately, and none of them are good. Your base shifts out from under you right at the moment you are delivering the ball. Your accuracy drops because you are throwing off a moving platform instead of a planted one. And you are essentially doing the pass rusher's job for him, pulling yourself backward into the collapsing pocket instead of stepping through it. This is not a small problem. This is the kind of thing that can end an NFL career before it really starts, because at the professional level, pass rushers are fast enough and technical enough to punish every single inch of drift you give them. You cannot survive in this league drifting, not even with elite arm talent. Not even with elite football IQ. The physics simply do not allow it. And here is the part that matters most right now. It is gone. Multiple people who watched the Browns practice tape this week, not Browns media, not the beat writers with access, but genuine third-party film breakdown accounts who have zero reason to be promotional about Shedeur Sanders, flagged it independently. The drift has been corrected. Significantly, the word that came up more than once was exponential, as in, the improvement from where he was a year ago to where he is standing in that pocket right now is not a small adjustment. It is a complete mechanical overhaul that has taken hold. Now here is where this gets interesting, because a fix like that does not happen by accident and it does not happen overnight. Someone built that into him. Someone with a system designed around timing, anticipation, and keeping a quarterback's feet alive in the pocket rather than retreating out of it. And if you know anything about Todd Monken's coaching history, the fingerprints here are not subtle. Monken built his reputation on exactly this kind of layered, timing-based offense, where the quarterback has to be a processing machine, not just an arm. His systems demand that a quarterback operate from a stable base, because the timing of the entire route tree depends on when and where that ball comes out. If the quarterback is drifting, the whole thing collapses.
In a real deal drill, when it's time to move the ball, drops an absolute bomb to a receiver. That might be play of the day so far. Sorry, I just got clips coming out the woodwork. They're everywhere. Here is another Shedeur Sanders, this time to Denzel Boston. And what you see from here on Denzel Boston is not only does he step up in the pocket, but then he threads the needle on this. I mean, very fearless throwing over the middle so far. He's been able to step up in the pocket. That's been something that's really been sticking out with me, right? And I might even put a video at the beginning.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Every route combination, every timing throw, every contested window opens and closes in fractions of a second. And if the quarterback's feet are wrong, the window is already shut before the ball leaves his hand. The fact that Shedeur is now operating with clean feet, stepping up under pressure rather than retreating from it, is not just a mechanical win. It is a signal that whatever Todd Monken is building offensively in Cleveland has started to take root in the way this quarterback moves and processes. That is significant. That is the kind of development that shows up in October when games are on the line, not just in August when practices are open and reporters are looking for drama. And none of that is the story coming out of Browns camp this week. This is Gridiron ground, by the way. And if you are new here and you actually want football broken down the way it should be, without the noise and without the manufactured drama, hit that subscribe button right now, because we do this every single time there is real tape to talk about. What the pocket drift fix actually reveals is just the foundation, because once the feet are right, everything built on top of that foundation gets sharper. The timing improves, the anticipation improves, and the throws that used to arrive a half second late because the base was moving start arriving exactly on time, right into windows that looked impossible from the outside. Which brings us to what Shedeur was doing with those windows on this particular day at Browns camp, and why it matters far more than any single drop ever could. There is a difference between a tight window throw and an actually tight window throw. And most football coverage blurs that line because most people watching have never had to make the distinction. A throw looks tight when the receiver has a defender close to him. An actually tight window throw is one where the ball has to travel between two bodies, hit a target that is moving at full speed, and arrive in a space that exists for less than a half second before a defender closes it permanently. One requires arm talent. The other requires arm talent plus anticipation plus trust in your receiver to be exactly where the route says he will be, plus the nerve to fire the ball before that window even opens. Shedeur Sanders was making the second type of throw on repeat at Browns camp this week. The Isaiah Bond throw is the one people are going to point to, and rightfully so, because it is genuinely one of the hardest completions you will see in a practice setting. On time, off platform, into a window that sat between a defender and Shedeur's own teammate. That is not a situation where you lob it and hope. That is not a situation where you pump fake and reset. You have a fraction of a second to decide the ball is going there, commit to the release, and trust that your placement is precise enough to thread through two bodies without hitting either one of them. He did it. And then the very next clip was another one. Different receiver, different route, same result. Ball placed exactly where it needed to be in coverage that would have made a lot of veteran quarterbacks check down or throw it away.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Now there is a critique that follows Shedeur everywhere, and it has been used to undercut his tape evaluations more than almost any other talking point. The wobble, the spiral, the aesthetic of how the ball comes off his hand when it is in the air. People slow the footage down, find a frame where the rotation looks imperfect, and use that still image as evidence that he lacks the arm talent to survive at the NFL level. Watch the Isaiah Bond throw again with that critique in mind. Whatever that ball looks like rotating through the air, it arrived between a defender and a teammate and found the receiver. That is the only test that actually matters on a football field. Completion percentage does not care about spiral tightness. A defensive back does not get credit for almost intercepting a ball because the rotation was aesthetically imperfect. Either the ball got there or it did not. Either the placement was correct or it was not. It got there, the placement was correct. And this is where a purely aesthetic critique of a quarterback's mechanics starts to fall apart under the weight of actual results. If a pitcher throws a no-hitter with an ugly windup, nobody is seriously arguing the windup is the real problem. If a shooter scores 40 points with a release that looks awkward in slow motion, nobody is seriously calling him a liability because of the form. Results matter. And right now, the results on Shedeur's contested throws are telling a very different story than the wobble narrative. What is worth noting beyond the Bond throw is that this was not a one-off. Multiple clips from this same practice session show Shedeur attacking tight coverage with the same level of confidence and the same level of precision. A throw to Isaiah Bond earlier in the day into tight coverage that multiple film accounts called out specifically as the kind of contested window work that does not happen by accident. A deep shot that only works if the quarterback has already committed to the decision before the receiver has come out of his break. The receiver does not know the ball is coming until the quarterback has already decided it is going. That level of anticipation in a rookie is genuinely rare. And the fact that it is showing up not once but repeatedly across a full practice session suggests it is not a lucky read. It is a pattern. The question is not whether the throws are there. The tape answers that. The question is why the throws are not the headline, and the answer to that gets a lot more interesting when you understand what was actually happening before the snap on some of these reps. There is a version of quarterback evaluation that stops at the throw. Ball left the hand, ball arrived at the target, play is over, move on. And at the youth and high school level, that is probably sufficient because the game is simple enough that post-snap execution is the whole story. But at the NFL level, the play is mostly decided before the ball is ever snapped. The quarterback who wins in this league is the one who walks to the line of scrimmage, reads the defensive alignment, processes what coverage is being shown versus what coverage is actually being played, and adjusts the play accordingly before a single player has moved. This is the part of the quarterback position that almost never makes highlight packages. It does not look exciting on a phone screen. It does not generate clip-worthy moments. But it is the
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Single most important skill a quarterback can develop, and it separates the guys who survive in this league from the guys who get exposed in year 2 when defensive coordinators have enough film to scheme against them. On one specific rep this week at Browns camp, Shedeur Sanders walked to the line, looked at the defensive alignment, recognized that the coverage was backing off, and completely changed the play. Not a slight adjustment, not a simple audible to a run. A full play change based on what he was seeing from the defense before the snap. The result was a clean gain for a positive play that goes in the books as routine. What does not go in the books is the processing that made it happen. A film breakdown account, not a Browns beat writer, not a team-affiliated media person, but a genuine third-party football film analyst flagged this specific rep and called it out for exactly what it was. A quarterback processing rep that most rookies simply cannot execute this early. The kind of decision that requires you to have the full playbook internalized, the ability to recognize defensive coverage at the line in real time, and the confidence to take the offense in a completely different direction than what was called in the huddle. That is a film guy observation. Someone who knows football at a structural level, pointing at a play that looks like nothing and explaining why it actually means everything. And here at Gridiron Ground, that is exactly the kind of football we exist to break down for you. Not the surface-level drama, not the drop compilations, the actual football happening underneath the storylines that are easier to push. If you have been riding with us for a while, you already know this is what we do. If you are new here, subscribe right now because this is the channel that does not skip the football to get to the takes. The pre-snap processing piece matters enormously for one specific reason. It means the tight window throws and the contested completions we talked about in the last section are not happening on instinct alone. They are happening because Shedeur is arriving at the right answer before the ball is snapped, which means by the time the play develops he is already a step ahead of the coverage. The throw that looks incredible is actually the last step in a process that started at the line of scrimmage before anyone was watching. That is a quarterback who is learning how to play the position the right way, not just executing throws, but operating the offense as a system. Which makes what happened next at this practice even more significant, because there was a moment where the entire media cycle pivoted away from all of this and locked onto something else entirely. Something that had nothing to do with what Shedeur was or was not doing with the football. And understanding why that pivot happened tells you everything about how narratives get built and destroyed in NFL coverage, even when the tape is sitting right there telling a completely different story. Let us be clear about something before we go any further into this section, because this is not about piling on a wide receiver or manufacturing drama where it does not need to exist. Drops happen in football. Every receiver in the history of the game has dropped passes in practice. Drops happen in games. Drops happen in drills. It is a physical game played by human beings, and no one has ever caught everything thrown their way at every level. So when we talk about what happened with Jeudy at Browns camp this week, the drops themselves are not the real issue. The real issue is the headline. Within minutes of the drops happening on the practice field, the coverage cycle locked in. Social media posts went up. Clips got pulled and shared. The narrative machine started running, and the story became drops, and more drops. And the way that story got framed, intentionally or not, pulled the focus directly away from the quarterback and placed it squarely on a situation that had nothing to do with what Shedeur Sanders was or was not doing on the football field. Here is what actually happened. Shedeur threw a ball. The ball was catchable. The ball was accurately placed. It went through Jeudy's hands. That sequence of events is a receiver drop, not a quarterback miss. The ball went where it was supposed to go. The problem existed entirely on the catching end of the play, not the throwing end. Anyone who watched the full rep and came away questioning Shedeur's accuracy on that throw either did not watch closely or has already decided what the story is going to be before the footage runs. Multiple drops were flagged in the same practice session, according to Bench Warmer Sports, with at least 2 or 3 balls from Shedeur going through Jeudy's hands during the same block of reps. And here is the statistical reality that completion percentage never captures. If even 1 or 2 of those accurately thrown balls are caught, Shedeur's number for the day climbs noticeably. If both connect, he is pushing into the mid to high 60s on percentage, while also being the only quarterback on the roster to score a touchdown. That is a very different story than the one that got published.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Now there is a broader context here that deserves to be mentioned because it matters. Reports have suggested that Jeudy led the league in drops for a significant stretch last season and finished near the top of the drop leaderboard overall. That is not a fabricated stat, and it is not being used here to destroy a player's reputation. It is simply relevant information when evaluating what happened in this practice and why the narrative landed where it did, instead of where the tape suggested it should. Because while all of this was happening with Jeudy, something else was quietly developing on the depth chart that barely got mentioned in the same breath. Denzel Boston has been moving up. The kind of movement that does not happen by accident and does not happen without the coaches watching the tape and making a deliberate decision. If a receiver is climbing the depth chart at this stage of training camp, it is because the evaluation process has already produced a conclusion. And a conclusion like that tends to say more about what is actually happening on the practice field than any single rep posted to social media ever could. The drops narrative is real in the sense that it happened. But context is the whole game when you are evaluating a quarterback. And right now, the context around Shedeur's accuracy is being actively buried under a storyline that belongs to someone else. The numbers from that day are about to make that point even more clearly. Completion percentage is one of the most misused statistics in football evaluation, and it has been since the stat was invented. It sounds simple and clean. Quarterback throws ball, ball is caught, percentage goes up. Quarterback throws ball, ball is not caught, percentage goes down. But the reality of what that number actually captures is far more complicated than the fraction makes it appear. And if you stop at the raw percentage without asking even the most basic contextual questions, you are not evaluating a quarterback. You are evaluating a number in a vacuum. Here is what the numbers from this Browns camp session actually showed. Shedeur Sanders finished the day 13 for 21. That is roughly 61% on the surface. Deshaun Watson finished at 70%. Dylan Gabriel, working on a 5-attempt sample that barely constitutes a meaningful data set, finished at 80%. And the coverage cycle, predictably, led with those numbers in that order, presenting them as a straightforward ranking of who had the better day. Except 80% on 5 throws is not a comparable number to 61% on 21 throws. The volume is so different that treating them as equivalent data points is statistically dishonest. A 5-throw sample can be perfect because the risk exposure is almost non-existent. You take 5 relatively clean looks, you connect on 4 of them, and your percentage looks elite. That is not evaluation. That is noise. And the 61 versus 70 comparison between Shedeur and Watson deserves its own layer of context. Watson is a veteran quarterback operating in his 4th week back from dual Achilles surgeries, with $230 million fully guaranteed on his contract and coaching staff management that almost certainly includes some degree of rep protection. The throws Watson is seeing and the throws Shedeur is seeing in those practice reps are not identical situations. The coverage windows, the pressure packages, and the level of defensive aggression being applied to each quarterback are factors that a raw completion percentage does not even begin to account for. Now add back the drops. Multiple accurately thrown balls from Shedeur that went through Jeudy's hands are counted against Shedeur's completion percentage, even though the execution on Shedeur's end of those plays was correct. That is not a minor statistical footnote. If one of those drops becomes a catch, the percentage moves. If two of them become catches, the percentage moves significantly. And we are now looking at a quarterback finishing somewhere in the mid to upper 60s on a day, where he was also the only player on the roster to put a touchdown on the board. That last part is the one that keeps getting buried, and it should not be. Watson threw efficiently and had a clean day by percentage standards. Gabriel's 5-attempt sample looked good in isolation, but neither of them scored. Shedeur was the only quarterback at Browns camp that day to produce a touchdown, not through garbage time stats, not through a padded sample against backup defenders. A real touchdown in a real drill on a day where the coverage numbers and the contested throw volume were higher for him than for anyone else on the depth chart. Raw percentage without context is misleading. Percentage with context, accounting for drop-adjusted numbers, throw difficulty, defensive coverage quality, and actual scoring output, tells a story that looks nothing like the one that made the rounds this week. And all of that context is right there on tape for anyone willing to look. Pull everything together, and here is what a full and honest review of this practice session actually shows. A quarterback who walked into this camp with a documented pocket drift problem and walked out of today's practice session with multiple independent film accounts confirming that problem has been visibly and significantly corrected. That is not a small thing. Mechanical corrections at the professional level, real ones that hold up under live pressure situations, are the hardest adjustments a quarterback can make because the habits being replaced were built over years of repetition. The fact that the drift fix is showing up not in a controlled drill setting, but in live team reps with actual defensive pressure applied, is meaningful in a way that a single practice statistic can never fully capture. A quarterback threading a deep ball between a defender and his own teammate on a throw that had to arrive in a window that existed for less than half a second. Not a lucky throw, not a bailout lob into open space. A precise, committed, anticipation-based delivery that required the quarterback to make the decision before the receiver had even come out of his break, trust the placement completely, and execute without hesitation, even with defensive pressure in his face. That is one of the hardest completions in football regardless of level, and it happened in a live team drill against first-team defense. A quarterback who changed a play entirely at the line of scrimmage after reading the defensive alignment pre-snap and identifying a coverage adjustment that made the original call the wrong call. This is the rep that a film breakdown account had to flag independently because Browns media did not lead with it, did not feature it, and let it get buried under the drops coverage cycle. Pre-snap processing of that quality in a rookie quarterback is genuinely rare, and the fact that it happened organically in a team setting rather than in a controlled scripted drill makes it more impressive, not less. A quarterback stepping up into pressure rather than retreating from it, keeping his eyes downfield, feeling the rush collapsing around him without panicking, and still finding the window in the middle of the field with a rusher closing fast. This is what pocket presence actually looks like when it is working correctly. Not the absence of pressure, but the management of it. A quarterback who drifts in that situation is a sack waiting to happen. A quarterback who steps up, stays through his progression, and delivers the ball anyway is a quarterback who is starting to understand the position at a professional level. And a quarterback who was the only one on the entire Browns roster to produce a touchdown on a day where his completion percentage was quietly suppressed by multiple drops on accurately thrown balls, on tougher throw assignments into tighter coverage than anyone else on that depth chart was navigating. None of this is spin. None of this is narrative management on behalf of a quarterback who needs protection from criticism. This is what the tape actually shows when you watch the full practice session from beginning to end, instead of pulling the two most shareable moments and building a story around them. Third-party film accounts caught it before Browns media touched it. That is the part that should make you pay attention, because an independent analyst with nothing to promote and no access to protect has the most credible take in any media environment. When those accounts are flagging the same precision and the same processing that the full tape shows, the conclusion is not hard to reach. The tape does not lie, the headlines sometimes do. Here is where everything we have covered today stops being about one practice session and starts being about something much bigger. Preseason is coming, and preseason is where narratives either get confirmed or get destroyed, because suddenly the tape is not practice footage from a session that only certain people have access to. It is broadcast. It is available to everyone at the same time with no filtering and no editorial decisions being made about which clips get shared and which ones stay buried. A tight window throw in preseason is not a film account exclusive. It is a moment that happens in front of a national audience and gets processed in real time by every analyst, every fan, and every decision maker watching. That changes the stakes considerably. If Shedeur Sanders goes into preseason and continues doing what the tape from this week shows him doing, the conversation cannot be controlled the same way it has been during camp. A pre-snap adjustment that leads to a touchdown on a nationally broadcast preseason game is not something that gets buried under a drops narrative. A step-up completion against a live pass rush with the game clock running and an audience watching is not something that gets footnoted because a teammate dropped 2 passes earlier in the practice. Preseason puts everything in the open, and based on what is on tape right now, that might be exactly what this situation needs. There is also a coaching layer here worth thinking about as we get closer to that moment. Todd Monken does not build these kinds of offenses and install this kind of timing system without believing his quarterback can execute it. Coordinators at this level are evaluated on results. They do not spend training camp building a system around a quarterback they have written off or a quarterback they are managing down toward a backup role. The investment of time, the level of complexity in the play designs, and the apparent trust being extended to Shedeur in terms of pre-snap authority all point in one direction. Monken believes the quarterback can run this offense, and Monken's system at its best is exactly the environment where what Shedeur does well, anticipation, tight window placement, pre-snap processing, is maximized. The drift fix that we talked about in the first section matters even more in this context because Monken's timing offense requires the quarterback's feet to be right. The entire system collapses if the base is wrong. The fact that the feet are right now means the offense can actually function the way it was designed to function. That is a significant development heading into the games that actually count. This is Gridiron ground, and before we wrap this up, do yourself a favor and subscribe right now if you have not already. Every time there is real tape to break down, every time a story is getting buried under noise, every time the numbers need context that nobody else is providing, this is where you find it. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because we are going to be all over the preseason tape the moment it drops, and based on what we have seen this week, there is going to be a lot to talk about. Drop a comment below and let the Gridiron Ground community know where you stand on this. Are you buying what the tape is showing from Shedeur heading into preseason? Or do you need to see it in a game setting before you are convinced? One word, one emoji. Let us know right now. This community moves fast and your take matters. The answer to whether this is real or whether it evaporates the moment preseason starts is coming sooner than anyone thinks. Here is what we actually know after going through everything. Shedeur Sanders walked into Browns camp with a mechanical problem that has quietly become one of the most significant corrections in their entire quarterback room. He walked through a full practice session making tight window throws on repeat, changing plays at the line after reading defensive coverage, stepping up into pressure rather than retreating from it, and finishing as the only quarterback on the roster to put a touchdown on the board that day. His completion percentage was suppressed by drops that were not his fault. His best throws were flagged by third-party film accounts before Browns media touched them. His pre-snap processing is the kind that usually gets celebrated when it comes from a veteran quarterback and gets ignored when it comes from a rookie everyone has already decided to doubt. The wobble critics are still out there. The depth chart drama is still out there. The drops narrative is still out there. And the preseason is coming for all of it. Because when the games start and the tape is public, and there is no editorial filter between Shedeur Sanders and the audience watching, every tight window throw either happens or it does not. Every pre-snap adjustment either works or it does not. The narrative cannot survive contact with live game footage if the live game footage keeps telling the same story the practice tape told this week. That is the question heading into August, not whether Shedeur can make the throws. The tape already answered that. The question is whether the story that gets told about those throws finally matches what the footage actually shows. We will be watching every single rep. This is Gridiron Ground. Stay locked in.
Browns film saying Sanders makes a quick or check at the line of scrimmage, mid-zone pop for a nice gain. So he gets to the line, he's signaling, hey, they back up. So he completely changed the play after reading the defense from the pre-snap, and he was able to, and again, this is a film guy. These are people who, know more about foosball than me, and from their perspective, doing good preseason as well. So at some point, we do have to talk about the Jerry Jeudy shaped elephant in the room. And look, I'm done blaming Jerry Jeudy, but according to Benchwarmer Sports, Jerry Jeudy dropped 2 passes, and within 3 minutes, 3 passes were dropped.